I thought it was just a simple kindness, dancing with the quiet boy no one else dared to notice. But in that moment, beneath the chandeliers and shadows of a Mafia wedding, his father, the ruthless king of the underworld, watched from the doorway. When his son smiled for the first time in years, the boss's mind was set. I would never walk away free again. I wasn't supposed to be noticed tonight. The Rossi wedding was the kind of event where waitresses like me became invisible, just shadows refilling champagne glasses while men in $1,000 suits made deals that could end lives. I'd learned the rules: eyes down, smile polite, never linger. But then I saw him. A little boy tucked into the corner shadows, wheelchair pushed against the wall like someone hoped he'd disappear. 7 years old, maybe. One leg ending in a prosthetic beneath pressed suit pants. While everyone else danced and laughed under crystal chandeliers, he sat alone, small hands gripping the armrests, watching the party like he wasn't part of it. My chest tightened. I glanced around. No one looked his way. Not once. Before I could second-guess myself, I set down my tray and walked over. His dark eyes lifted, surprised, guarded. "Would you like to dance?" I whispered. He blinked. "I can't." "That's okay." I smiled and extended my hand. "I'll help you." For a heartbeat, he just stared. Then his small fingers slipped into mine. The ballroom went silent as I guided him onto the floor. Gasps rippled through designer gowns and tailored suits. I felt 100 eyes burning into my back, but I didn't care. I held him steady, swaying gently to the music, and watched something impossible happen. He smiled. What I didn't know was that someone else was watching too. From the doorway, a man stood frozen in the shadows. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence so commanding the air itself seemed to bend around him. His jaw was carved from stone, his eyes dark and unreadable. Dante Rossi. The boss. The king. And he was staring straight at me. What does the most dangerous man in New York do when a stranger makes his son smile for the first time in 3 years? The boy's laughter rang out, bright, genuine, alive. I barely heard it over my own racing heartbeat, but the entire ballroom felt it. Conversations stuttered. Glasses paused mid-air. The music seemed to soften, like even the violins knew something sacred was happening. Luca, I'd learn his name later, looked up at me with eyes that had forgotten how to shine. "No one ever asks me to dance." "Then they're missing out," I said softly, spinning him carefully. His smile widened. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. This wasn't about me. This was about a kid who deserved to feel seen. When the song ended, I knelt beside his wheelchair and squeezed his hand. "You're a great dancer. Will you come back?" His voice was small, hopeful. I hesitated. "I don't think I'm invited back here." "You are now." The voice came from behind me, low, rough, absolute. I turned slowly. Dante Rossi stood 3 feet away, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Sharp cheekbones. A scar cutting through one dark brow. Eyes that looked like they'd seen too much death and felt nothing anymore. Except right now, they weren't looking at me like I was nothing. They were looking at me like I'd just stolen something priceless. "Take her name," he said to someone behind him without breaking eye contact. "Address. Everything." My pulse spiked. "Excuse me." "You made my son smile." His voice was dangerously soft. "That makes you valuable." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against marble like a countdown. Luca waved at me as a woman in pearls wheeled him toward the exit. My hands trembled as I picked up my tray. I didn't know it yet, but my life had just ended. And his had just begun. I told myself it meant nothing. The next morning, I woke up in my cramped studio apartment, sunlight cutting through the broken blinds, and convinced myself the Rossi wedding was just another shift. Weird, sure. Intense, definitely. But over. I had 2 classes, a paper due Friday, and another catering gig at a corporate event downtown. Normal life. My life. Except I couldn't shake the memory of those eyes. The way Dante Rossi looked at me wasn't like the way men usually looked at waitresses. Not dismissive, not hungry. It was something colder. More deliberate. Like he was deciding what to do with me. I shoved the thought away and threw on jeans and a hoodie. My phone buzzed, a text from my roommate asking if I'd seen her charger. I replied, grabbed my backpack, and headed out into the autumn chill. The street was busy with morning traffic, coffee shop lines snaking onto the sidewalk, students rushing to campus. Everything normal. Except for the car. Sleek. Black. Tinted windows. Parked directly across from my building. I paused mid-step, my stomach tightening. It hadn't been there yesterday. I would have noticed. You're being paranoid, I told myself. It's just a car. But as I walked toward the subway, I felt it. Eyes. I didn't look back. I told myself I was imagining things. That rich people didn't care about broke college waitresses who got brave for 5 minutes at a wedding. But when I turned the corner, I swore I heard the engine start behind me. I should have run then. I should have known. By day 3, I couldn't deny it anymore. The black car was always there. Different streets, different times, but always close enough to remind me I was being watched. At the coffee shop where I studied between classes, parked across the street. Outside the restaurant where I picked up my paycheck, idling at the corner. Near the subway station when I left my evening shift, headlights cutting through the dark. I started taking different routes home. Ducking into stores. Changing trains twice. Nothing worked. My roommate, Jess, noticed me jumping at shadows. You okay? You've been weird lately. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just stressed about midterms. But I wasn't fine. I kept my pepper spray in my pocket. Started looking over my shoulder every few steps. My hands shook when I unlocked my apartment door, convinced someone would be waiting inside. No one ever was. But the car was always there. On the 4th night, I stood at my window, curtain pulled back just enough to see the street below. The black sedan sat under a streetlight, engine off, windows dark. Who were they? What did they want? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I opened it. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. A car will pick you up. Don't make us come inside. No name. No explanation. I looked back at the street. The car's headlights flashed once. They were telling me they'd been watching all along. I didn't sleep. By 9:45 a.m., I was standing on the sidewalk outside my building, arms crossed, jaw tight. I'd considered running. Called my mom, then hung up before she answered. What would I even say? Hey mom, I think the Mafia is following me because I danced with a kid? It sounded insane. But the black car pulling up to the curb at exactly 10 a.m. was very, very real. The back door opened. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, broad shoulders, dead eyes, the kind of face that had seen violence and dealt it without flinching. Miss Romano. Not a question. An order. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what this is about. His expression didn't change. Mr. Rossi would like to speak with you. Then he can call me like a normal person. Mr. Rossi doesn't call. He stepped aside, gesturing to the open door. You can come willingly, or we can make this uncomfortable. Your choice. My pulse hammered. I glanced at the street. People walking dogs, a mom pushing a stroller, life happening like mine wasn't being ripped apart. I could scream. I could run. But something told me it wouldn't matter. I climbed into the car. The door shut behind me with a heavy click, and we pulled into traffic. Leather seats. Tinted windows. Silence so thick I could hear my own breathing. We drove for 40 minutes, the city giving way to sprawling estates hidden behind iron gates and stone walls. Finally, we turned onto a private road lined with ancient oak trees. Then I saw it. The Rossi mansion rose ahead like something out of a dark fairy tale. Grey stone, towering columns, windows that watched like eyes. Beautiful and terrifying all at once. The car stopped at the entrance. The man opened my door. He's waiting. I stepped out, legs unsteady, and stared up at the mansion. I was about to meet the king in his castle. And I had no idea if I'd ever leave. Inside, the mansion was even more intimidating. Marble floors stretched endlessly beneath crystal chandeliers. Oil paintings of stern-faced men lined the walls. Ancestors, probably, who'd built this empire on blood and fear. Every surface gleamed with old money and older secrets. Footsteps echoed as I was led up a grand staircase, down a hall lined with closed doors, and finally into a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A mahogany desk. A fireplace crackling softly in the corner. And standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back, was Dante Rossi. He didn't turn around. Close the door. The guard obeyed and left. The lock clicked. We were alone. Mr. Rossi, I started, hating how my voice shook. I don't know why I'm here, but you danced with my son. He turned slowly, and the weight of his gaze hit me like a physical force. You made him smile. Do you have any idea how long it's been since I've seen that? I swallowed hard. He looked lonely. Lonely. His jaw tightened. My son has the best tutors, the best doctors, everything money can buy. And none of it mattered. Until you. He stepped closer. I wanted to back away, but my feet wouldn't move. You will stay here, he said quietly. You will spend time with Luca. You will give him what I cannot. My breath caught. You can't just order me to. I can. His eyes were cold, absolute. And I am. I have a life. School, work, family. Taken care of. He pulled a folder from his desk and slid it toward me. Your tuition is paid. Your rent covered for the year. Your mother's medical bills, handled. I froze. How do you? I know everything about you, Elena Romano. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. 22. Sociology major. Works 3 jobs to stay afloat. Father walked out when you were 9. Mother has lupus. Tears burned my eyes. You have no right. I have every right. His voice dropped, dangerous and soft. You touched my son. You gave him hope. And now you belong to this family. I'm not some possession you can just. No. He stepped so close I could smell expensive cologne and something darker, gunpowder maybe. You're something far more valuable. His hand lifted, and I flinched. But he didn't touch me. His fingers hovered near my cheek, trembling with restraint. You're the only person who's made my son smile in 3 years. That makes you untouchable. Irreplaceable. His eyes burned into mine. And that makes you mine. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run. But the way he looked at me, not with cruelty, but with something almost like desperation, made me freeze. 1 month, I whispered. I'll stay 1 month. Then I'm gone. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. We'll see. I thought I was agreeing to care for a child. I didn't realize I was signing my soul over to the devil himself. My room was a gilded cage. Silk sheets. A 4-poster bed. Windows overlooking gardens so perfect they looked painted. A marble bathroom bigger than my entire apartment. Everything screamed luxury, but the lock on the outside of my door screamed prison. I didn't sleep that first night. Just sat on the edge of the bed, still in my jeans and hoodie, staring at walls that cost more than my yearly tuition. At dawn, a knock. A woman entered without waiting for an answer. 50-something, severe bun, crisp black dress. Miss Romano. I'm Maria, the head housekeeper. Your breakfast is ready. Mr. Luca is expecting you in the sunroom at 8. I didn't agree to Mr. Rossi's orders. Her expression softened slightly. The boy has been asking about you since yesterday. Please don't disappoint him. Guilt twisted in my chest. None of this was Luca's fault. I showered, found clothes laid out for me, designer labels I couldn't pronounce, and followed Maria through hallways lined with art worth fortunes. Guards stood at corners, eyes tracking my every move. Some nodded. Others stared like I was a curiosity. Or a threat. We passed a room where voices murmured behind closed doors. I caught fragments: shipment, territory, eliminate. My blood went cold. Maria noticed me falter. Best not to listen to things that don't concern you, miss. The sunroom was all glass and light, plants spilling from expensive pots. And there, by the window, sat Luca in his wheelchair, face lighting up the moment he saw me. You came back. Something in my chest cracked. Of course I did. He wheeled closer, eyes bright. Papa said you're staying. Is that true? I glanced at Maria, who'd retreated to a corner. For a little while. Good. His small hand grabbed mine. Can we play checkers? No one here ever wants to play. How could I say no to that face? I was trapped in a world of blood and power. But for him, I'd pretend everything was normal. Days blurred together. Mornings with Luca became my anchor. We played games, read books, and I taught him things tutors never bothered with. How to make terrible jokes, how to paint without worrying about perfection, how to laugh so hard milk came out his nose. You're funny, he said one afternoon, giggling as I did a terrible impression of his stuffy math tutor. You're funnier, I countered, ruffling his dark hair. His smile faltered. My mama used to say that. The air shifted. She did. He nodded, tracing patterns on his wheelchair armrest. Before she died. She said I had her smile. His voice dropped, but I stopped smiling after. My throat tightened. Why? Because smiling felt like forgetting her. I knelt beside him, taking his small hands in mine. Luca, your mama wouldn't want you to stop smiling. She'd want you to be happy. That's what people who love us always want. Tears pooled in his eyes. You think so? I know so. He hugged me then, sudden, fierce, desperate. And I held him, this broken little boy in a wheelchair, and wondered how anyone could ever hurt him. From the doorway, a shadow shifted. I looked up. Dante stood watching us, expression unreadable. But something flickered in his eyes, pain maybe, or longing. Then he turned and walked away without a word. The boss watched his son come alive again. But did he resent me for succeeding where he'd failed? I felt him everywhere. Not physically, Dante rarely spoke to me. But his presence haunted every corner of the mansion. I'd catch glimpses of him in hallways, hear his voice from behind closed doors, feel his eyes on me during dinner. We ate together every evening. Him at the head of the table, Luca to his right, me across from them. Guards stood at attention. Servants moved like ghosts. Dante barely looked at me. But when he did, it felt like being X-rayed. How was your day? he'd ask Luca, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Good. Elena taught me how to paint landscapes. Look. Luca would show him smudged attempts at trees and sky. Beautiful. Always the same word. Always genuine. Then his gaze would slide to me, just for a heartbeat, before returning to his son. One night, after Luca was put to bed, I lingered in the library. Floor-to-ceiling books, leather armchairs, a fire crackling in the hearth. I'd just pulled a novel from the shelf when the door opened. Dante. My pulse jumped. I was just. Stay. He moved to the bar, poured amber liquid into 2 glasses. You drink whiskey? I'm 22, not 12. A ghost of a smile. Point taken. He handed me a glass, then sat across from me, the firelight casting shadows across his sharp features. Silence stretched. You're good with him, he finally said. He's a good kid. He likes you. I like him too. His jaw tightened. He talks about you constantly. Elena this, Elena that. You've done in 2 weeks what I couldn't do in 3 years. There was no accusation in his tone. Just exhaustion. You're his father, I said quietly. That's harder. Is it? His eyes met mine. Or am I just a failure at it? The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the cold Mafia boss. This was a man drowning in guilt. You're trying, I whispered. That counts for something. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he downed his whiskey and stood. Good night, Elena. He left before I could respond. The king of the underworld was cracking. And I was terrified of what might spill out. The servants whispered. I heard it in the laundry room, the kitchen, the hallways when they thought I wasn't listening. She doesn't understand what she's gotten into. Poor girl. She thinks this is temporary. No one leaves the Rossi world alive. That last one made my blood run cold. Maria found me in the garden one afternoon, staring at the high walls topped with iron spikes. You're thinking of running. Not a question. I didn't answer. She sighed, sitting beside me on the stone bench. I've worked for this family for 30 years. I've seen people try to leave. It never ends well. I'm not a prisoner. Aren't you? Her eyes were kind but sad. The moment you walked through those gates, you became part of this world. And this world doesn't let go. I'm just here for Luca. That's what they all say. She touched my hand gently. I'm not trying to frighten you, child. I'm trying to prepare you. The Rossi family protects its own. But protection comes with a price. What price? She stood, brushing off her dress. Your freedom. Your future. Your life. She paused at the garden entrance. The real question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for that little boy upstairs? I watched her disappear into the mansion. The walls suddenly felt higher. Was I saving Luca? Or was I burying myself alive? The dinner party was my first real glimpse into Dante's world. Men in expensive suits filled the formal dining room, their wives dripping in diamonds. Conversations flowed in Italian and English, punctuated by laughter that sounded more like threats. These weren't businessmen. They were predators in tailored clothing. I sat beside Luca, who'd begged to attend. Dante was at the head of the table, commanding the room without effort. And who is this? A man across from me leaned forward, eyes crawling over me like insects. Mid-50s, gold rings on every finger, the kind of smile that made my skin crawl. Elena, I said shortly. Dante's new. What? Assistant. His grin widened. She's exquisite. Where did you find her? Dante's fork paused mid-air. She's with Luca. Ah, the nanny. The man, Marco, I'd learned, chuckled. Surely she has other talents. Heat crawled up my neck. Other men around the table laughed, eyes lingering too long. I'm just here to help with Luca, I said firmly. A shame. Marco's gaze dropped to my neckline. Such beauty wasted on babysitting. Marco. Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. Choose your next words carefully. The temperature dropped. Marco raised his hands, still smiling. No offense intended, my friend. Just admiring the view. Dante's knuckles whitened around his fork. She is under my protection. That means she is untouchable. Am I clear? Crystal. But Marco's eyes still burned into me. The rest of dinner was tense. Men spoke in hushed tones about shipments and territories while I focused on cutting Luca's food, pretending I didn't feel multiple gazes undressing me. When it finally ended, I practically ran to my room. But I didn't make it. Dante's hand caught my wrist in the hallway. Did he touch you? What? No. If anyone in this house makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. His grip tightened. Do you understand? I stared at him, confused by the fury in his eyes. Why do you care? Because you're mine to protect. His jaw clenched. And I protect what's mine. His possessiveness should have terrified me. So why did it make my heart race? I found him in his office past midnight, papers scattered across his desk, a glass of whiskey in hand. I'm not yours. The words burst out before I could stop them. He looked up, unsurprised. You're still awake. I'm not your possession, Dante. I'm not some toy you can claim and show off to your creepy friends. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Is that what you think you are? That's what everyone else thinks. I stepped closer, anger burning through fear. Marco looked at me like I was on the menu. The other men weren't any better. And you just sat there talking about protection like I'm a piece of property. You're not property. Then what am I? Silence. He stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. You're the woman who made my son smile. The woman brave enough to challenge me in my own home. The woman who... He stopped inches away. Who makes me feel things I thought died with my wife. My breath caught. You terrify me, Elena Romano. His voice was barely a whisper. Because I've built an empire on control, and you make me want to lose it. Then let me go. I can't. His hand lifted, cupping my jaw with surprising gentleness. You asked what you are? You're the most dangerous thing that's ever walked through my door. Because you didn't bring a gun or a threat. You brought something far worse. What? His thumb brushed my cheek. Hope. We stood frozen, the air between us electric. Then he dropped his hand and stepped back. You want to leave? Fine. But you'll break my son's heart. And mine. His eyes held mine. Can you live with that? I couldn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I came here as a prisoner. But somehow, I was becoming something far more dangerous, willing. I found the newspaper clipping by accident. Hidden in a book in the library, yellowed and worn. Tragic accident claims life of mob boss's wife, injures son. My hands shook as I read. 3 years ago, a car explosion outside a Manhattan restaurant killed Isabella Rossi, 32, and critically injured her son Luca, 4. Authorities ruled it a gas leak. The Rossi family declined to comment. Gas leak. Right. I dug deeper, searching online on my phone. More articles. More questions. Conspiracy theories about rival families, speculation about hits disguised as accidents. Luca's prosthetic leg, his wheelchair, his mother's death. All from one explosion. You shouldn't have found that. I spun around. Dante stood in the doorway, expression dark. Was it an accident? My voice shook. Or did someone try to kill your family? His silence was answer enough. Who? I demanded. Who did this? Enemies. He moved closer, jaw tight. I have many. And Luca got caught in the crossfire? Luca was the target. The words came out like broken glass. Isabella threw herself over him when the car exploded. She saved his life and lost hers. Tears burned my eyes. Why? Why would anyone target a child? Because hurting my son was the best way to destroy me. His fists clenched. They wanted to break me, and they succeeded. Did you find them? The people who did this? His smile was cold, merciless. Every single one. The implication hung heavy. You killed them. I burned their world to ash. No remorse. No hesitation. And I'd do it again. I should have been horrified. Should have run. But all I felt was devastating sadness, for the boy who'd lost his mother, for the man who'd lost his wife, for the family torn apart by violence. Is that why you keep us locked up here? I whispered. You're afraid it'll happen again? His eyes met mine, raw and haunted. Every day. The mansion wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. And we were the ones he was desperately trying to protect. Late that night, I found Dante in Luca's room. The boy slept peacefully, small chest rising and falling. Dante sat beside the bed, hand covering his son's, face shadowed with exhaustion. He didn't notice me at first. I used to read to him, he said quietly, voice thick. Every night. Isabella would handle dinner, and I'd do bedtime stories. His favorite was about a knight who slayed dragons. I stepped closer, throat tight. After she died, I tried to keep doing it. But every time I opened the book, I'd see her, hear her voice. His hand trembled. So I stopped. Hired people to do it instead. Told myself he needed professionals, not a broken father. You're not broken. Aren't I? He looked at me, eyes red-rimmed. I can negotiate with killers, execute enemies without flinching, run an empire built on blood. But I can't read my son a bedtime story without falling apart. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you human. He laughed bitterly. Men like me don't get to be human. I sat on the other side of Luca's bed, watching the boy sleep. He doesn't need a king or a soldier. He needs his father. I don't know how to be that anymore. Then learn. I reached across, touching his hand. Stop hiding behind guards and tutors and me. Show up. Be present. Even if it hurts. Dante stared at our hands, his much larger, scarred, lethal. Mine small, soft, trembling. Why do you care? He whispered. Because he's a little boy who deserves his father's love. And because. I swallowed hard. You're not the monster you pretend to be. His fingers tightened around mine. We sat there in the darkness, holding hands over a sleeping child, two broken people pretending to be whole. I'd seen him as a captor, then an employer, then a father. But now, I was starting to see him as something far more dangerous, a man. The note appeared under my door 3 nights later. Plain white paper. Block letters in black ink. Leave before you're buried here. My hands shook as I read it again. And again. Someone inside the mansion had written this. Someone who knew where I slept. Who could access my room? Who wanted me gone? I thought about showing it to Dante. But what would he do? Interrogate the entire staff? Lock down the mansion even tighter? Or worse, what if it made him realize I was a liability? What if he decided I wasn't worth the trouble? I crumpled the note and threw it in the fireplace, watching it burn to ash. But the message had already burned into my mind. Over the next few days I felt it, eyes watching from shadows, whispers cutting off when I entered rooms, servants who wouldn't meet my gaze. Someone here didn't want me around. And they were warning me that staying would be deadly. On the 5th night, I woke to footsteps outside my door. Slow. Deliberate. Then nothing. I lay frozen, heart hammering, staring at the crack under the door where shadows shifted. Finally, the footsteps retreated. But I didn't sleep again that night. Because the note was right. I didn't belong in this world. I was a college waitress playing house in a Mafia empire, growing attached to a boy I couldn't protect and falling for a man who dealt in death. This wouldn't end well. But even knowing the danger, I couldn't bring myself to run. Because leaving meant abandoning Luca. And maybe, though I hated to admit it, leaving Dante too. Should Elena trust the warning? Or is someone trying to manipulate her? Drop your theories below. The invitation wasn't optional. You'll attend tonight's gathering, Dante said over breakfast, not looking up from his tablet. At my side. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? It's a business dinner. My allies expect to meet you. I'm not. I don't belong at. His eyes lifted, pinning me in place. You live in my home. You care for my son. Whether you like it or not, you're part of this family now. They need to see that. Why? My voice shook. So they can size me up like Marco did? So they know you're under my protection. His tone left no room for argument. And that anyone who touches you answers to me. By evening, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing myself. The dress Maria had laid out was midnight blue silk that hugged every curve, slit up one thigh, back dangerously low. Diamond earrings, real ones, sparkled at my ears. I looked like I belonged in this world. That terrified me more than anything. Downstairs, the mansion had transformed. Chandeliers blazed with light, tables overflowed with champagne and delicacies, and men in tailored suits mingled with women dripping in jewels. But underneath the elegance hummed something darker, the tension of predators circling, assessing, calculating. Dante waited at the bottom of the grand staircase. When his eyes found me, he went completely still. You look. He stopped, jaw tight. Stay close to me tonight. Not a request. An order. He offered his arm. I took it, feeling every eye in the room turn toward us. I'd walked into the lion's den on the lion's arm. And now there was no turning back. The evening crawled by in a blur of introductions and forced smiles. This is Elena, Dante would say, hand resting possessively on my lower back. She's with my family. The careful phrasing wasn't lost on anyone. Not girlfriend. Not employee. Family. It marked me as untouchable. And made me a target. I caught the stares, some curious, some envious, some calculating. Women sized me up like competition. Men looked at me like a puzzle to solve. And underneath it all, I felt the weight of judgment. What's a girl like her doing in a world like this? Then the music started. Dante's hand found mine. Dance with me. I don't think. It wasn't a question. He led me to the center of the room as a slow melody filled the air. His hand settled on my waist, pulling me close, and suddenly we were moving. He was a surprisingly good dancer, confident, smooth, leading me effortlessly through the steps. Everyone's watching, I whispered. I know. His breath brushed my ear. That's the point. Why are you doing this? His hand tightened on my waist. Because I want them to see you're mine. That you're not available. Not to them, not to their games, not to their threats. I'm not yours. His eyes darkened. Keep telling yourself that. We spun past other couples, past groups whispering behind champagne glasses, past guards stationed at exits. The entire room watched us, the brutal Mafia king and the waitress who'd somehow infiltrated his fortress. There's a man by the bar, Dante murmured against my temple. Gray suit, scar on his left cheek. He's been staring at you all night. My pulse jumped. Who is he? Vincent Calabrese. Head of the Calabrese family. My biggest rival. His jaw clenched. And now he knows exactly how to hurt me. Fear shot through me. Maybe I should. You should stay exactly where you are. He pulled me closer, possessive and protective. Let him look. Let them all look. They need to understand that touching you means war. The song ended, but he didn't let go. I'd become his weakness. And in this world, weaknesses got people killed. I excused myself to the bathroom, desperate for air. The hallway was quieter, cooler, guards posted at intervals but far enough apart for privacy. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I heard voices. Low. Urgent. Coming from a door left slightly ajar. Has to happen soon. Before the boss suspects. The boy is too well guarded now. She's made it harder. My blood went cold. Then we eliminate her first. Draw the boss away. Strike while he's distracted. And if he retaliates? He won't have time. Once the boy is dead, the empire crumbles. Without an heir, the other families will tear him apart. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. When? Next week. During the shipment exchange. He'll be off-site, she'll be with the boy. We move then. Footsteps approached the door. I ran. Back to the party, through the crowd, searching desperately for Dante. I found him in conversation with two older men, expression cool and controlled. Dante. My voice came out too high, too panicked. He turned, eyes narrowing at my face. Excuse me, gentlemen. He pulled me aside, hand gripping my elbow. What happened? Someone's planning to kill Luca. The words tumbled out in a rush. I heard them. They're waiting for you to leave, and then they're going to. Slow down. His hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Who? What exactly did you hear? I told him everything. Every word. Every detail. His expression hardened with each sentence. Did you see who was speaking? No, just heard voices. But Dante, they were serious. They have a plan. Next week during a shipment exchange. His jaw clenched. Only my inner circle knows about that. The implication hung heavy between us. Someone you trust is betraying you. His hands dropped from my face, fists clenching. Rage flickered behind his controlled mask. Dangerous, barely contained. Go upstairs. Stay with Luca. Don't leave his side. But now, Elena. I'd stumbled onto a conspiracy. And now both Luca and I were marked for death. Dante didn't come to bed that night. I knew because I stayed awake, listening for footsteps, jumping at every sound. Luca slept peacefully beside me. I'd moved into his room, refusing to leave him alone. At dawn, Dante finally appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted, furious, haunted. Did you find them? I whispered. He shook his head, moving to sit beside Luca's bed. I've questioned everyone. Checked surveillance. Nothing. His hands dragged through his hair. Either you misheard, or they're better at hiding than I thought. I didn't mishear. Elena. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw doubt. You've been under stress. The note under your door, Marco's comments, the pressure of this life. Maybe you heard something out of context and assumed. You don't believe me. Hurt lanced through my chest. I believe you heard something. But conspiracy talk is common at these gatherings. Men posture, make threats they never intend to follow through on. This wasn't posturing. I stood, anger replacing hurt. They were planning specifics. Timing. They know about your shipment exchange. Half the city knows about my business dealings. So you're going to ignore this? Wait until someone actually tries to kill your son. His eyes flashed. I have increased security. Guards on Luca around the clock. No one gets near him without going through me first. That's not enough. It has to be. His voice dropped, weary. Because I can't lock down the entire operation based on an overheard conversation with no witnesses, no proof, no suspects. So you think I'm lying? I think you're scared. He stood, approaching slowly. And fear makes us hear threats everywhere. Tears burned my eyes. I'm trying to protect him. I know. His hand brushed my cheek. But so am I. And right now, the best protection is caution, not panic. I pulled away from his touch. When they come for him, remember I warned you. I turned and left before he could see me cry. He didn't believe me. And that might be the mistake that destroys everything. 4 days later, hell arrived. Dante left for the shipment exchange at midnight, a dozen guards with him. He'd kissed Luca's forehead, told me to lock the doors, and promised to be back by dawn. I triple-checked every lock. Kept my phone charged. Stayed in Luca's room with a guard posted outside. Everything seemed fine. Until it wasn't. The first gunshot shattered the silence at 2 a.m. Then screaming. Shouting. More gunfire. I bolted upright, heart hammering. Luca stirred beside me, eyes fluttering open. What's happening? Stay down. I pushed him behind the bed, hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. The guard burst through the door. Miss Romano, we're under attack. I need to. Blood exploded from his chest. He crumpled forward, revealing a man in black standing in the hallway, gun raised. Not a rival. One of Dante's own men. Hello, Elena. His smile was cold. You should have taken the warning. I recognized the voice immediately. He'd been one of the men in the hallway that night. A traitor inside the house. He stepped over the guard's body, gun trained on me. Where's the boy? Run. I screamed at Luca. Chaos erupted. More gunfire from downstairs. Shouting. The sound of bodies hitting floors. Smoke began creeping under the door. They'd set something on fire. The traitor lunged toward the bed. I threw myself between him and Luca, arms spread wide. You'll have to go through me. He laughed. Gladly. The gun swung toward my face. This was it. I was going to die protecting a little boy I'd met at a wedding. And somehow, I wasn't afraid. Time slowed. I saw the gun. Saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Luca's terrified face behind me. Then, an explosion of sound. But it wasn't his gun. The traitor's head snapped back, blood spraying. He crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Behind him stood Dante, covered in blood. Eyes blazing with fury. Gun still smoking. Touch them, he snarled at the corpse, and you touch hell. More men poured into the room, loyal guards, weapons drawn. The sounds of fighting downstairs intensified, then slowly died out. Dante moved to me in 3 strides, hands gripping my shoulders. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to speak. His gaze dropped to Luca, who was trembling behind me. Something cracked in his expression, relief and rage and devastation all at once. Papa. Luca scrambled into his father's arms. Dante held him fiercely, eyes squeezing shut. I've got you. I've got you. Then his eyes opened and found mine. You were right. His voice was raw. You were right, and I didn't listen, and he couldn't finish. I touched his face, feeling tears on my own cheeks. He's safe. That's all that matters. Dante's hand covered mine, pressing it against his jaw. You threw yourself in front of a gun for him. Of course I did. You could have died. So could he. His eyes burned into mine, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Something that looked like love. You're the bravest person I've ever met. His voice cracked. And the most foolish. Probably. He pulled me close with his free arm, Luca between us, and we stood in that blood-stained room, 3 broken people clinging to each other like lifelines. Outside, his men secured the mansion. The traitors were dead or captured. The fire was contained. But everything had changed. Because I'd proven I would die for this family. And Dante had proven he'd burn the world for us. The war wasn't over. But now we knew exactly who we were fighting for. Dante didn't come to bed that night. I knew because I stayed awake, listening for footsteps, jumping at every sound. Luca slept peacefully beside me. I'd moved into his room, refusing to leave him alone. At dawn, Dante finally appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted. Furious. Haunted. Did you find them? I whispered. He shook his head, moving to sit beside Luca's bed. I've questioned everyone. Checked surveillance. Nothing. His hands dragged through his hair. Either you misheard, or they're better at hiding than I thought. I didn't mishear. Elena. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw doubt. You've been under stress. The note under your door, Marco's comments, the pressure of this life. Maybe you heard something out of context and assumed. You don't believe me. Hurt lanced through my chest. I believe you heard something. But conspiracy talk is common at these gatherings. Men posture, make threats they never intend to follow through on. This wasn't posturing. I stood, anger replacing hurt. They were planning specifics. Timing. They know about your shipment exchange. Half the city knows about my business dealings. So you're going to ignore this? Wait until someone actually tries to kill your son. His eyes flashed. I have increased security. Guards on Luca around the clock. No one gets near him without going through me first. That's not enough. It has to be. His voice dropped, weary. Because I can't lock down the entire operation based on an overheard conversation with no witnesses, no proof, no suspects. So you think I'm lying? I think you're scared. He stood, approaching slowly. And fear makes us hear threats everywhere. Tears burned my eyes. I'm trying to protect him. I know. His hand brushed my cheek. But so am I. And right now, the best protection is caution, not panic. I pulled away from his touch. When they come for him, remember I warned you. I turned and left before he could see me cry. He didn't believe me. And that might be the mistake that destroys everything. 4 days later, hell arrived. Dante left for the shipment exchange at midnight, a dozen guards with him. He'd kissed Luca's forehead, told me to lock the doors, and promised to be back by dawn. I triple-checked every lock. Kept my phone charged. Stayed in Luca's room with a guard posted outside. Everything seemed fine. Until it wasn't. The first gunshot shattered the silence at 2 a.m. Then screaming. Shouting. More gunfire. I bolted upright, heart hammering. Luca stirred beside me, eyes fluttering open. What's happening? Stay down. I pushed him behind the bed, hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. The guard burst through the door. Miss Romano, we're under attack. I need to. Blood exploded from his chest. He crumpled forward, revealing a man in black standing in the hallway, gun raised. Not a rival. One of Dante's own men. Hello, Elena. His smile was cold. You should have taken the warning. I recognized the voice immediately. He'd been one of the men in the hallway that night. A traitor inside the house. He stepped over the guard's body, gun trained on me. Where's the boy? Run. I screamed at Luca. Chaos erupted. More gunfire from downstairs. Shouting. The sound of bodies hitting floors. Smoke began creeping under the door. They'd set something on fire. The traitor lunged toward the bed. I threw myself between him and Luca, arms spread wide. You'll have to go through me. He laughed. Gladly. The gun swung toward my face. This was it. I was going to die protecting a little boy I'd met at a wedding. And somehow, I wasn't afraid. Time slowed. I saw the gun. Saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Luca's terrified face behind me. Then, an explosion of sound. But it wasn't his gun. The traitor's head snapped back, blood spraying. He crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Behind him stood Dante, covered in blood. Eyes blazing with fury. Gun still smoking. Touch them, he snarled at the corpse, and you touch hell. More men poured into the room, loyal guards, weapons drawn. The sounds of fighting downstairs intensified, then slowly died out. Dante moved to me in 3 strides, hands gripping my shoulders. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to speak. His gaze dropped to Luca, who was trembling behind me. Something cracked in his expression, relief and rage and devastation all at once. Papa. Luca scrambled into his father's arms. Dante held him fiercely, eyes squeezing shut. I've got you. I've got you. Then his eyes opened and found mine. You were right. His voice was raw. You were right, and I didn't listen, and he couldn't finish. I touched his face, feeling tears on my own cheeks. He's safe. That's all that matters. Dante's hand covered mine, pressing it against his jaw. You threw yourself in front of a gun for him. Of course I did. You could have died. So could he. His eyes burned into mine, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Something that looked like love. You're the bravest person I've ever met. His voice cracked. And the most foolish. Probably. He pulled me close with his free arm, Luca between us, and we stood in that blood-stained room, 3 broken people clinging to each other like lifelines. Outside, his men secured the mansion. The traitors were dead or captured. The fire was contained. But everything had changed. Because I'd proven I would die for this family. And Dante had proven he'd burn the world for us. The war wasn't over. But now we knew exactly who we were fighting for. The basement of the Rossi mansion wasn't designed for storage. It was designed for punishment. I didn't go down there. Dante ordered me to stay upstairs with Luca, who'd finally fallen asleep after hours of trembling in my arms. But I heard the screams. They echoed through stone walls, through locked doors, through my very bones. The surviving traitor had been dragged below while Dante's face remained eerily calm. That terrified me more than rage would have. "Stay with my son," he'd said, voice flat. "Don't come downstairs. No matter what you hear." Maria appeared at my door an hour later, face pale. "It's done." "What did he do?" She met my eyes. "What he does to anyone who threatens his family. What he'll always do." She paused. "You should know, there were 3 traitors total. All dealt with. The threat is eliminated." Dealt with. Such a clean word for something so brutal. But when Dante finally emerged, clothes changed but darkness still clinging to him, I understood something fundamental. This was who he was. Not the vulnerable father or the man who made my heart race. He was a king who ruled through fear and blood. And he'd just painted the basement red for us. He stopped in Luca's doorway, watching his son sleep peacefully beside me. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for protecting him when I couldn't. You came back in time." "Barely." His jaw clenched. "If I'd lost him, if I'd lost you both." He didn't finish. Didn't need to. The monster had bled for us. And somehow, that made him more human than ever. Morning came with exhaustion and ash. The mansion was a crime scene. Bullet holes scarred marble walls. Blood-stained Persian rugs. Workers moved through hallways, repairing damage, removing evidence, making the nightmare disappear like it never happened. But Luca wouldn't let go of me. His small arms wrapped around my waist as we sat in the garden, face buried against my shoulder. He hadn't spoken since the attack. Just held on like I might vanish. "You're safe now," I whispered into his hair. "I promise." He shook his head, grip tightening. Dante appeared on the terrace, watching us. He'd been in meetings all morning, damage control, securing alliances, ensuring last night's betrayal didn't inspire others. But now he just stood there, looking at his son clinging to me like a lifeline. Slowly, he approached and knelt beside us. "Luca." His voice was gentle. "Can you look at Papa?" Luca turned slightly, eyes red and swollen. "I'm sorry," Dante said, and his voice cracked. "I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry you were scared. I'm sorry for everything. Elena saved me." Luca's voice was barely a whisper. She stood in front of the gun. Dante's eyes lifted to mine, burning with something I couldn't name. "I know she did. Don't let her leave." Luca's tears started fresh. "Please, Papa. Don't let her leave like Mama did." The words shattered something in Dante's expression. "I won't," he promised, still looking at me. "I won't let her leave." It wasn't a promise to Luca. It was a warning to me. I'd become the glue holding this broken family together. And now they'd never let me go. That night, Dante found me on the balcony. I was staring at the gates, at the world beyond the walls, wondering if I'd ever see it again. "You're thinking of running?" "Not a question. I'm thinking about what normal used to feel like." He moved beside me, close enough that I felt his warmth. "There's no normal for you anymore. You know that. Because you won't let there be. Because you threw yourself in front of a gun for my son." He turned to face me fully. "Because you heard a threat and warned me, even knowing I might not believe you. Because you've worked your way so deep into this family that losing you would destroy us both." I didn't ask for this. "No." His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek. "You danced with a lonely boy at a wedding. And that single act of kindness sealed your fate. That's not fair. Nothing about this life is fair, Elena." His eyes burned into mine. But it's the life you're in now. And I'm selfish enough to keep you here. Even if I want to leave. His other hand rose, caging me against the balcony railing. Especially then. My breath caught. You can't just decide. I already have. His forehead pressed against mine. You're mine, Elena. Mine to protect. Mine to keep. Mine to, he stopped, jaw clenching. Yours to what? Love. The word came out broken. Mine to love, even though I swore I'd never feel this again. Tears burned my eyes. Dante. Don't. His voice was ragged. Don't tell me you don't feel it too. Don't tell me this is one-sided. I couldn't. Because he was right. Somewhere between fear and fury and watching him fall apart over his son, I'd fallen for the monster in the mansion. I was his prisoner. His salvation. His damnation. And I was starting to accept I might never want to leave. 3 days later, I stood in the doorway of my room, a packed bag at my feet. I'd made my decision. Luca was healing. Dante had tripled security. The traitors were gone. My 1-month promise was long expired. It was time to reclaim my life. Except my feet wouldn't move. Elena. I turned. Luca stood in the hallway in his wheelchair, eyes wide and terrified. You're leaving. His voice broke. You're leaving us? My heart shattered. Luca, You promised. Tears spilled down his cheeks. You promised you'd stay. I stayed to keep you safe. But you're safe now. I'm not. He wheeled closer, grabbing my hand desperately. I'm not safe without you. Please, Elena. Please don't leave us. Behind him, Dante appeared. Silent. Watching. His expression unreadable, but his eyes were screaming. Don't go. Don't leave me alone in this darkness. I looked at the bag. At the door. At freedom waiting just beyond the gates. Then I looked at the little boy clinging to my hand and the broken man standing behind him. And I realized something devastating. I didn't want freedom anymore. I wanted this. Wanted them. Wanted the chaos and danger and twisted love that came with this family. Slowly, I pushed the bag aside with my foot. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. Luca launched himself into my arms, sobbing with relief. Over his head, Dante's eyes closed, his entire body sagging like I'd just saved his life. When he opened them again, he mouthed 2 words, thank you. But I saw the truth beneath. I wasn't staying because they needed me. I was staying because I needed them too. Later, after Luca fell asleep between us in the master bedroom, neither of us could bear to let him sleep alone. Dante and I stood on opposite sides of the bed, watching him breathe. You know what this means, Dante said quietly. Staying. Choosing this life. Tell me. He looked at me across the sleeping child. It means you're ours now, Elena. Truly ours. Mine and his. There's no escape from this family, from this world, from me. I know. It means danger. Enemies. A life lived in shadows. I know. It means I'll never let you go. His voice dropped, possessive and dark. Not to another man. Not to your old life. Not even if you beg. I met his gaze steadily. I know. Something flashed in his eyes. Triumph, relief, desperate love. Then welcome to the family, Elena Romano. His lips curved into something between a smile and a threat. You're a Rossi now. And we protect our own. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, like I belonged. I came to the mansion as a captive. I stayed as something far more dangerous, willing. And now, bound by blood and love and a little boy's laughter, I was exactly where I was meant to be. The dance that changed everything? It had only just begun. The end. Or is it? Will Elena survive in the Mafia world she's chosen? What new threats await the Rossi family? And can a ruthless king and a brave waitress find their happily ever after in a world built on blood? Drop a like if you want part 2, and tell me, Team Dante or Team Freedom? Comment below. Thank you for watching. Follow for more Mafia romance, forbidden love, and stories where danger meets desire. Your comments and shares mean everything. Blackheart.